your mind when you actually think about neurosurgery? Any takers? Yeah? Huh? So does brain come to your mind, or trauma, or water in the brain, or complexity, precision, talent, skills, right? I actually really need my slide because the next part actually goes into it. Thank you so much. So we'll just pass forward through this because I already done that. Life or death, for sure. I'm sure it comes to your mind when you think about neurosurgery. So the next question then comes, what do you think when you think about a neurosurgeon? If you are a fan of Grey's Anatomy, this sexy image may come to your mind, Mr. McDreamy, right? But actually, in reality, a very different image comes to your mind when you think about a neurosurgeon, right? And even if you search Google, this is what you're going to come up with, right? Or this gentleman, right? But for sure, this image will never come to your mind when you heard or think about the word neurosurgeon. But this is who I am. And for me, what is neurosurgery? For me, neurosurgery is a 40-year-old guy who I have to tell that he has only 9 months to live. And I see this expression of numbness and denial on his face. For me, neurosurgery is a 2-day-old boy that is born with a weight of less than 2 kg that I have to operate on. Or a parent who's 21-year-old has not survived a massive road traffic accident. That's what neurosurgery is. It's actually a heartache. Let me take you back to my journey and my story. And it all began when I was a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed medical student. And my life actually always revolved around on a singular goal. The singular goal was that I really want to become a US-trained neurosurgeon. That was my goal. And at that time, people would say, why do you want to do neurosurgery, right? And I would also, just to their disappointment, there was no defining moment for me that told me that I want to become a neurosurgeon, right? There was no revelation, no jolt of lightning, nothing like that happened. But the fact was that I was always fascinated with brain. I was always fascinated, the novelty, the mystery of the brain. I was just fascinated by it. I was fascinated by the pathways of the brain. And my favorite pastime, you believe it or not, was to actually make the crevices and the swells of the brain with a Play-Doh. And so that was my favorite pastime. And so naturally when I was in my medical school, I naturally gravitated towards becoming a neurosurgeon. And when I gravitated towards becoming a neurosurgeon, of course, you have mentors, and you go to your mentor and you ask your mentors, this is what you want to do. And when I went to my mentor, suddenly it realized to me that dreaming an impossible and achieving an impossible are actually completely two different phenomena. My mentor completely outrightly told me it is impossible. And he said, if you want to do neurosurgery in US, this is absolutely an exercise in futility. I was very depressed. And then I just thought about it. Why did he even say that, right? So, sorry, it's not the image. So what happened was that at that time, there was about 1.3% of women in US were neurosurgeons. And it was mostly a very, very white, male-dominated society. The medical disciplines were actually not sensitized of how a women neurosurgeon would be. There were actually no role models out there at that time. And the biggest hindrance at that time was that neurosurgery as a profession requires a lot of physical and emotional challenges, right? So if you draw a graph of all the disciplines in US that work the hardest, neurosurgery comes on the top. So an average neurosurgery resident would work in those days, about 90 to 100 hours a week, right? And a woman in the prime childbearing years is not ready to commit to such harsh lifestyles, right? And that was the biggest problem, that women never went into neurosurgery, right? So when my mentor told me that, I was quite depressed, and but my heart was just singing one tune, that's neurosurgery in the US, and that's all I wanted. At that time, I realized that since my competition, 99% of them are all white males, I have to be absolutely different. I had to do something different to stand out amongst them. And at that time, I decided to do something which is called as research in something called as functional magnetic resonance imaging. What it is that, it was in vogue in those days. I'm talking about late 90s, 99, 2000. It was very much in vogue, and scientists at that time were trying to understand that if we have a function, for example, if we move our hands, where does this function actually reside in the brain? And that is through an MR machine, not through direct open, when you open the brain and you can electrically manipulate it, not that way, but through an imaging. So this is actually an image of all the functions of your hand, foot, your face, your lips on the brain, right? So if I ask you to do something, for example, just clap with me 3 times. So what happened is that you hear a command from me, your brain retrieves a message, and then the message goes to this part of your brain, which is the hand area. Sorry, the pointer is not working, but you can see the hand area, right? And the information is transmitted, right? So you know that there is a certain function of your hand or your foot or your lips on the brain, right? Now what I want you to do is actually pinch the person beside you. Pinch the person beside you, pinch yourself. Yeah, did you guys pinch it? Right? So who felt a very mild pain? Raise your hands. Who felt moderate to severe pain? Yeah? Very few moderate to severe pain. So what I want to tell you is that if there's a machine that pinches every one of you with the same intensity, still people would feel pain differently, right? And you know that. People have different pain thresholds, right? You know the yogis in Himalayas, right? They would sit there for hours or days and they would not feel any pain, right? So what I wanted to tell you is that the pain is actually a behavior. It's a perception. There is no functional anatomy of pain on the brain, right? So I decided to do my research to find if you can actually find that perception on the brain, right? And I was able to do that, and I was able to publish some papers, and that caught the attention, and I was able to get into one of the neurosurgery programs. Thank you. Now, residency, as the TV, Grey's Anatomy and many other shows glamorizes it so much that, all this thing is happening. It is really not like that at all. I was in upstate New York, okay? This is upstate New York, right? I have to get up 5:30 in the morning to go to work, okay? And this would be the state in there. My hands would be cold, my ears would be cold. I have to shovel the snow from my car, from my driveway, and have to reach, sometimes even slide through my car to my program, right? Now, when you would go there, ironically, it's different that I wanted to be different, to be picked up, right? But when I got picked up, and I was in my training program, I suddenly realized what difference actually means, right? So every day, all my teammates were all males, right? And they really took the image of the neurosurgeon I showed you very seriously, right? So they all look like that. They had all shaved their heads so they don't even have to comb their hair in the morning, right? And here I was, 5:30 a.m. in the morning, with the hair and with the makeup on, right? So this what happened. But And I, of course, stood out. I did, because I was just different. And the good thing was that I had a mentor. And my mentor was a male, okay? And he, I think because of him, I am where I am right now. He was the one who took me in, guided me all the way through, ensured my success, and helped me achieve what I am right now. And because of that, all the ungodly hours, waking up at 5 in the morning, working for 100 hours a week, was still doable. Um, so here comes this picture. So what happened was that my mentor was actually the chair of Society of Neurosurgeons. This is a society which comprised of all the chairmen of neurosurgery in the United States. And these chairmen would sit together and they would say, why there are no females in the neurosurgery, right? This fraternity starts to think about this, right? And suddenly it becomes a national interest that there are no female neurosurgeons, right? And whoever the few female neurosurgeons were in the US decided to write a white paper, they published it. They found out why a medical school class, which is more than 50% of females, are not going into this profession, right? Once they found out, I of course, became the face of it. And we did a lot of interviews and events which were actually geared towards bringing more women into neurosurgery, right? I got attention, I got the recognition, I brought more women, but it was not because I was bald. It was because I was bold enough to do it. So next, when I was about to finish my neurosurgery residency, I was just thinking, what do I really want? What kind of neurosurgeon I really want to become? And there happened a story with one of my patients that was very pivotal for me. It really changed the way I am, and it really defined me the way I became as a neurosurgeon later in my life. There was this young girl, she was 16 years old. And she had, at that time when most of her 16-year-old friends were either partying or trying to find a driving license, she was one fighting for her life. She had a brain tumor, a very large one, in a very critical area of the brain. And she got admitted to our hospital, and our male colleagues were trying to deal with it. And she was a young, beautiful, vain, She was 16-year-old. She had long hair. She said, I'm not going to get my head shaved. And she resisted it, right? And so my colleague said, okay, just go put some sense into her. So I was sent to talk to her. And I told her a little story of my own. I said, when I was 10 years old, my mother had actually cut my hair. And it was devastated for me. It was really a traumatic event. And I completely understand why she doesn't want to shave her hair, right? It is her self-esteem that comes from her hair, right? And that's why she didn't want to lose her self-esteem. It was not about hair. It was about her own self-esteem, right? Anyway, she decided that she listened to me, and we decided I'll do her shaving, which I did. Everything went fine. She went for surgery. But the most amazing thing that happened after surgery was that when she came out of the operating room, into her room, and she was ready to receive all her visitors, they were all her girlfriends standing there. They had all shaved their heads. This single act actually spoke volumes to me about the strength of a woman. It spoke volumes to me about the solidarity of a sisterhood that can exist. Because a lot of women say that women don't get along with women. I think it's absolutely not true. I think the women's sisterhood is much more stronger than a male brotherhood. I don't know. So, connecting the dots now, I decided, and actually I had a workshop just a few months after this incident happened. And in this workshop, I met this master from Australia who was a Chinese neurosurgeon with an Australian accent. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life, a Chinese guy with an Australian accent. And But the kind of work he did was amazing. The kind of work which we call nowadays as minimally invasive neurosurgery. I was amazed. I was super excited. I said, this is exactly the kind of work I want to do, right? And so I started applying for the program. I had the grades, I had the experience, I had the fantastic, references from all my top mentors and stuff. But I was really surprised that he actually turned me down immediately. He turned me down immediately. He never gave a reason. He never indicated why. And I am like, I want to pursue this. I want to find out why I was not taken. So I asked two of my mentors. One was the chairman of the Society of Neurosurgeons, and one was the chairman at Harvard, because I did my pediatric neurosurgery with him. So when the two big people called, he decided to take me in. He took me in. And the first day when I went to Australia, to his operating room, this is what he said. I can never forget this. This is what he said. He said, Aneela, you are here. Then he turns to the guys and he says, well, guys, I didn't take her because I've never trained a female before. And at that time, I actually realized that in any profession where there is male domination and a boys' club, the man is always hesitant to take a female because he doesn't understand whether she will be able to assimilate in a male culture, will understand the jokes, will understand the banter that goes on into the operating room or any other field. And I decided that I'm going to change this man's mind. And after that, we did some wonderful work, okay? This is called minimally invasive neurosurgery. Small eyebrow incision. 6 months later, you can't even see that incision. It's really gone. Forget about hair shaving. There's another gentleman. It's barely visible right there, just about his eyebrow. Another one we did, we tried to hide the scar within the forehead lines. And this is the kind of work that I learned from him. And I am eternally grateful to him because he also shaped me for who I am right now. And he was a great mentor to me. Again, a male who actually sponsored me, who believed in me yet again and helped me to pave the paths of my success. By the time I was leaving Australia, I was almost his 5th extended daughter. And since then, he has taken 4 female fellows and have trained them in this minimally invasive art. After I left Australia, I decided I want to go back home. I want to go back to Pakistan. So I came back here. I joined Aga Khan University Hospital. And when I came here, I looked around. What is the basic idea of a Pakistani male neurosurgeon comes to my mind, right? To your mind. I'm sure it would be like somebody who is 55, or who would you like to go to? Like somebody who's like 55, 60-year-old, graying, baldish, medium height, little gray hair, wears spectacles, right? That's the kind of image always pops into your head when you think about neurosurgery, right? Really, the world is not sensitized to women neurosurgeons. And when I came over here to Pakistan, I suddenly felt that not only I look different, but I am actually treated differently too here. Not only by my colleagues and peers, but my patients as well, right? So, in a clinic, they would whisper in each other's ears, "Kya aap aurat se surgery karayenge?" Right? Because the problem over here is that there's so little faith in the medical system, right? The moment they see you, they think you are guilty until you have to prove yourself otherwise. Or either there is a word of mouth and they know you from somebody else. There's a culture over here of getting first, second, 7th, 20th opinion from some neurosurgeon, right? Or some doctor, right? And then figuring out what to do. By the time patient is almost confused at what he really wants to do. Okay, so the taking of multiple opinions actually confuses the patient, right? The other thing that I felt here, which I had never felt in all the other 3 continents that I have worked in, was that the scales tip very high and the scales tip very low. So when it's high, they put you on a pedestal. you are a god after the god, right? And when the scale tips low, right, you are blamed for everything, including that you could be a murderer, right? So the balance of the scale, I don't know if it's a Pakistani culture or what it is, but really, either there are extremes of high or either there's extremes of low, right? That's the way we are. That's the way we are as nation too, right? Either we love people too much or either we just like, that's it, right? And that's what I felt over here. And since then, my Aga Khan experience is that since I have been here for the last 3.5 years, there have been about 4 females that we have inducted into neurosurgery. I have also opened up a Women in Neurosurgery chapter, which is within the Pakistan Society of Neurosurgery. And the aim is to bring one female neurosurgeon from any part of the globe to come over here to sensitize the community that women neurosurgeons are as skillful as the male are, and also to interact with the upcoming female neurosurgeons, networking, going around in the world and seeing different culture, and also learn different ways of doing neurosurgery, right? And so I've started that. Before I leave, I want you to leave with this. If next time somebody asks you what a neurosurgeon looks like, I want you to have this image in your mind. Thank you.